Welcome to Rapid Fire Manufacturing. Today I'm with Harold Schoch, Board of Directors for Feeds North America. If you're familiar with Cincinnati and Millicron, I'm sure everyone knows you in that area too. He's a huge advocate for workforce development and just a wonderful person to know. So Harold, thank you so much for having me.
Good to have you, David. Thank you for being here.
We're at the Schoch Museum here. So I want to know about your history from Apprentice to CEO to Board of Directors and now to the philanthropy that you're doing. It's really amazing to see.
Well, thank you. Well, I started in the machine tool business in 1979, a company called the American Tool Works Company. I started my apprenticeship there, and I had exceptional mentors. Earl Singleton and Ed Hoffmeyer were two machine tool geometry specialists. And they specialize in the art of hand scraping. It's a dying art today.
Yeah.
There's not very many folks who do it. Fortunately, they taught me very well. I went on from American Tool, I then moved over to Mazak and spent about 3 months in Mazak's Minicamo plant in 1982, and moved from there to the LeBlanc Machine Tool Company, which is where my great-grandfather worked and actually retired. George Love, he was the beginning of this 5-generation machine tool family that we have in the industry. So my father shared with me that my great-grandfather, his grandfather, went back after retiring, David, this is an interesting story, and to exchange pleasantries with the coworkers, as you would do in those days. And on his way out, he stopped in to see the head of HR, had a massive heart attack and actually died there at LeBlanc, so the place that he retired from. So yeah, it's a very interesting history that we have. And in 1988, I joined a company called Remachine and Retrofit Company, owned by Bob Wethington and Gary Smith. They were former Cincinnati Milling national and regional service managers. I learned a tremendous amount of the craft, very diverse background skills, electromechanical, machine tool geometries, alignments, unit assembly. I worked my way up to become the vice president of operations for Remachine. We were the rebuild partner for Cincinnati Milling in those days. They had a couple leaders there named Dan Yonka and Bill Horworth. Bill was responsible for the aftermarket business, so we would rebuild in partnership, strategic partnership with Cincinnati, rebuild machines together.
Oh, wow.
And that we'd also do control retrofits for ESD. And then in 2003, I started my own family business. And in 6.5 years, we grew that to be one of the most recognized machine tool rebuild retrofit businesses in the United States. Caught the attention of a company called Konecranes in 2009. If you remember 2008, President Bush and Mr. Bernanke walked out on the White House lawn and told the American people that the wheels were coming off the economy. And it did, not only in the United States, but globally. It's probably the biggest economic downturn since the Great Depression. Fortunately, those years were our company's best years. Cash strong, debt-free, strong order book. That's what attracted the attention of Konecranes. So in 2009, we sold the family business to Konecranes, and we were there until 2017. And we grew the business. I think we more than doubled, but not quite tripled the revenue during the Konecranes years. And then 2017, they bought DMAG, which is their largest global competitor on the lifting side of the business. And I got a call from Bernie D'Ambrosi. He said, Harold, listen, you guys have done everything we've asked you to do, but we've just closed on DMAG. It's going to tax our human and financial resources. So we made a business decision to divest the machine tool business holding. So we're about $140 million global business. And he asked me to select the company that we would want to pitch the business to. Hands down, there was nobody else in my mind other than Cincinnati because of the legacy that they have in the industry.
Yeah.
The love that I have for my mentors, Gary and Bob. And so in January of 2018, we closed on that deal. And so I finished my career at Cincinnati at the Feeds group, FMSI, Fees Machining Systems Inc. division. In 2022, we migrated a lot of customers and a lot of business over in the aftermarket side. And in 2022, Mr. Frederick Sanchez, who's the chairman of Fees, asked me to be the CEO. And I spent the next 2.5 years as CEO at Cincinnati.
That's awesome. What do you think was, I guess, something that jumps out is, why do you think you were so successful during the time where the economy was not doing very well?
Well, we never took our eye off of the quality of our workmanship. We understood that our customers were struggling. The whole world was struggling. So we struggled with them. There was a lot of opportunity for us to build long-lasting strategic partnerships. Not everything is about an exchange of currency. When your loyal customers are struggling, you struggle with them. And then when the economy began to return, they remembered the folks that, partnered with them during tough times. So it was never, I've always taught my team that if you focus on doing the right things, principled things consistently over and over again, the byproduct of doing the right things is revenue and is profit and is margin. And I'm very grateful to have been fortunate enough to lead some very, very good teams, both at Remachine and my family business and at FMSI.
Yeah, that's awesome. As far as Fees goes, I know you guys are doing some really incredible things, especially on the workforce development. You just launched a new program. Can you remind me of what that is?
Yeah, I'll be delighted to. We actually began to lay the foundation for that while I was there because of the passion that I have for workforce development and training the next generation of machine tool specialists. Working with the other CEOs, Matt Chalky was at Atlantis then. He was my successor at FMSI. Actually got the idea from Pasquale Calo, who is the CEO for our Fees Linné business in Granby, Canada. He brought that to us. I think his experience was with the Fees aluminum. And I think they called it back to school. And because of my experience with Cincinnati, knowing that Frederick Geyer was on the board of trustees for the University of Cincinnati when Herman Schneider brought the idea of launching a program, that was called, in those days, was the Cincinnati Plan, but now we know it as the co-op program.
Yeah.
So in 1906, 1908, about that era, Frederick Geyer was one of 9 board of trustees. He cast what many would say is the deciding vote to approve the launch of that co-op program.
Wow.
And so the rest of the world are benefactors of the co-op program, but I don't think very many of them know the genesis or the origin, and it points to Cincinnati and the impact that we have on the fabric of training.
And is this Frederick's chair?
This is Frederick V. Geyer.
Oh, V. Geyer, okay.
Yeah, Frederick V. Geyer is the son of the founder, Frederick A. Geyer. Frederick A. passed away in 1934 of a massive heart attack. He was 67 years old. His son, Frederick V. Geyer, was kind of cast into the leadership position. So that is his chair. That was gifted to me by the curator of the Frederick Geyer belongings because of my passion and my love for the industry. Behind you, which the audience can't see, is Frederick Geyer's personal desk. So what you see right behind you is the Neil Armstrong Award that was given to to an engineer annually. Neil Armstrong was on our board of directors from 1980 to 2000.
That's cool.
Of course, he was a professor at the University of Cincinnati. So a rich legacy. The eagle represents the famous quote, that Neil Armstrong said when he landed on the moon, the eagle has landed. So over my shoulder is the James Geyer Leadership Award. James Geyer was the 3rd generation. He was Frederick V. Geyer's son. Frederick V. is who built the Cincinnati Empire. It's a huge story behind that Cincinnati name that maybe we can get into sometime, maybe for a few minutes here, but certainly in the future.
And that was based on the map too? Is that what he mapped out?
Yeah. The Colony Factory was his dream in Oakley. The Oakley facility prior to World War II, was a 700 square foot 700,000 square foot facility. After Frederick Geyer went to Europe to assess the viability of building factories in Europe to get close to their customer, he recognized what was going on in Germany. And of course, Adolf Hitler was spewing his poison in those days. And so he came back and met with his board, and they decided, listen, it appears as though Europe's in trouble, and if Europe's in trouble, the United States is going to be in trouble because of our close allies there. Yeah. So he gave the directive to the board to double the manufacturing facility. So it went from 700,000 square foot to 1.4 million square foot on 102 acres. 1942, well, throughout the war, Cincinnati produced a machine tool every 17. That's a feat that probably will never be duplicated. During the war, they produced over 17,500 machine tools, which is also probably a feat that would never be in that year alone. Yeah. In that year alone. And that represented, well, it was 1 out of 12 machine tools had a Cincinnati placard on it. So yeah, it's very interesting. We also bored. In those days, the barrels on the naval fleet was 16 inches in diameter. We bored all the barrels that were on those big guns in the naval fleet. So our contribution to help free Europe from the grips of Nazism is stellar, along with Ford Motor Company and Bethlehem Steel.
Wow, that's incredible. As far as the future for Peop, I know we wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So Peop, I'm actually delighted. I just admire Frederick Sanchez and the team that he's built. I mean, you talk about the renaissance that's taking place in the industry today, manufacturing today. We would be considered, because our headquarters is in France, we would be considered FDI, foreign direct investment company. The foreign direct investment companies in the United States represent 3 million manufacturing employees of the 12.6 million that's employed today. So Frederick Sanchez is such a visionary leader. He has owned companies in the United States for around 30 years, and we're a $1 billion revenue generator in North America. So if you do the math, in 30 years, approximately 30 years, that's a huge year-over-year growth pattern. And he believes in empowering his leaders, his CEOs. When he asked me to be the CEO, he and I worked very closely together, and he gave me the freedom to do a lot of things that I had become natural to me, over the years, over the last, 40 years plus. While I was at Peop, working in concert with Frederick and some of the other CEOs, we really stabilized the business. We've got the same leaders. Helene Nemmer is the general manager for GNL. Matt Schoch is now my successor. Pasquale is the CEO at Linné. My son, Buddy Schoch, is the president of the aftermarket business. So it's a very stable business. We adopted a one Peop, one united team mission. All of these businesses were exceptional standalone businesses, but with the work and the support of Mark Austin and his team, we had 3 offsite meetings, and we established the 100-day goals. And our team, I'm delighted to say, they accomplished every single one of them. We placed a long-standing Peop employee named Robert Harper as the head of our chief commercial. He's our chief commercial officer. And we brought all of these businesses together. They're still standalone profit centers, but the synergies that weren't there before Frederick and I and the rest of the CEOs began to talk about this mission is there now. And I think we're stronger today because of it. And you talked about the training program. It's the Peop Academy. I wanted to call it the Frederick Sanchez Academy out of honor for Frederick, but he's a very humble man, and he deflects the attention to his team, and I admire that and respect that. But we did launch it after I retired. Heather McClanahan is heading that up for Matt Schoch and Buddy and Helene now. Yeah, so I was honored, and when they asked me to come back and be one of the first instructors, when they got this program launched. So I'm grateful for that. And I think the thing that I'm probably the most proud of is that we saw what was coming, with the demand, the gaps in skilled trades. And so we thought, well, at one time, all these machine tool companies, when I was a young man, they were vertically integrated. We'll just use Cincinnati. I could say GNL is the same, but Cincinnati had their own spindle department. Jeff Davis ran that for them. They made their own spindles, their own ball screws. Ralph Mayfield ran that department for them. But then as the machine tool industry, a lot of the machine tools began to shift it offshore, and we saw the decline, they had to reach out, and develop these partnerships. Well, us rebuilders have had those partnerships for 50 years. Yeah. So they had to get in line, right? So one of the things I'm grateful for is that we recognize that if you don't own it, you don't have to pay for it every day that it's not in use. So we developed what we called the Peop Strategic Partnership Alliance. And we've reached out to companies like, we've strengthened our alliance with Fanuc. We entered into the Siemens Solution Partnership Program. We strengthened our relationship with Prestige Equipment, owned by a friend of mine named Terry Lashin. So what happens when you do that is you get foot soldiers that aren't on your payroll, but are on your team, and they're pounding your drum, and they're championing, and they're carrying your flag. And we generate a lot of sales through our strategic partnerships, and I think it's paid huge dividends for us. And we brought all of the sales teams from Landis and Linné and Lund and others together under kind of Robert's leadership out in Seattle, Washington. So there's a lot of exciting moments, and Matt Schoch is one of the brightest operations leaders that I've ever met. So he's taken all of that, the things that we were able to implement as a team under Mark Alton's support and Frederick Sanchez's encouragement, and he's put it on steroids, and I'm very proud of what they've accomplished.
That's awesome. One thing I wanted to talk about is how important is it to give back? Now, I don't want to say you're in retirement. I feel like you're in more of a retooling, reindustrializing, like mentorship and giving back. So how important is that?
I appreciate that. That's really where my passion lies today. My faith teaches me that to whom much is given, much is required. I have been very blessed, my family and I, and we owe everything that the good Lord's given us to this industry. So when I retired, I thought, what's the best way to give back? And it's through mentoring. I have 3 men that I'm mentoring now. There's probably growing me as much as it's growing them. But I've had an opportunity, I sit on the Peop's North American Board of Directors, work closely with Matt Schoch and Buddy and their team to help with workforce development. And they contract me to come in and do this knowledge transfer. I've become an executive consultant to a company called AH Group in Michigan. We're one of the largest, if not the largest, MROs in the United States, and we have a global reach. Drew Perrick and his team doing a phenomenal job of supplying OEM parts. Because of our strategic partnerships with a lot of the OEMs, we're able to deliver on our promises. So we're helping many of our customers who have supply chain shortages. We've got over strategic partners globally that we can draw from. So I'm very proud of that, and Drew rewards me for that, and that goes into the Schoch Family Charitable Trust, so I can help. My passion, my wife and mine's passion. My wife's name's Becky, and she's really been the wind beneath my wings. We'll celebrate 49 years of marriage, and so she's witnessed this entire journey with me and been there along the way. But we have a passion for rescuing children who are caught up in sex trafficking. We have a passion for mothers who choose to have their babies, whether the daddy is present or not. So we give back to those ministries. And we have a passion for the first responders. We're trying to give back in these ventures. And I want to give a shout out to companies like Advix and Komatsu and X-Tech and Caterpillar and Highway Machine Company, Fanuc, Siemens. When they found out what I was doing with the gifts that the good Lord's given me and the network, they all came to our partnership, to our side, and said, hey, we really want to be a part of that. It's a win-win. Yeah, absolutely. You get the services, you get the training, you get the workforce development, and you also get to help many, many good causes.
That's really cool. I think that's something people don't talk about enough in the industry too. And maybe it's not as common, but that's really awesome.
Yeah, we're all connected to each other. Yeah. And as you and I've had a discussion before, if we can have all of the flattery and we can all have all of the fanfare, But in the end, people do business with people, and you look for three things. Can I trust you? Are you committed to excellence? And do you care about me personally? And if you can answer those three questions in your personal life and in your professional life, you're going to go a long way.
Yeah, I like that. Those are three. I like what you mentioned before too. It's try to do more things right, try to do less things. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So the way to succeed is to do more things right, fewer things wrong, or both. Yeah. Preferably both.
I like that. It's just, I feel like, especially in this industry, it's easy to get wrapped up in complexity. And if you try to simplify things, it actually end up.
Yeah, we want to let the tools do what they were designed to do. Yeah. A lot of people are talking about AI and digitization and digital twin. Great leaps in technology. And I'm very proud that Peop and the AH Group are at the forefront of those technologies. But in the end, people do business with people. And it's going to be the companies who develop the strongest strategic partnerships, I believe, are going to be the companies that deliver the best customer satisfaction in the end. Yeah. Because I do believe that all of us working together are stronger, smarter, and wiser than one of us working alone. And I think you're seeing that. Look at what Harry Moser is doing with Reshoring Initiative. Look at what Terry Iverson is doing to support, high schools and even elementary schools to get the conversation around the table like it was. And let's just go back to 1949. 1949, there was about 148 million citizens in the United States. And there was 13 jobs. It represented non-farming manufacturing jobs in 1949 represented between 30 and 35% of the jobs in the United States. So let me paint a word picture for you. That's a third. So every third house, figuratively speaking, had somebody who worked at the Peop Group, Cincinnati, Ford Motor Company, GE, Bethlehem Steel, Wow. So what we want, and so can you imagine what the conversations around the dinner table were? Oh, yeah. Okay, what's happening in the factory? Or at the neighborhood block parties, the fathers and the uncles and the nephews. So the children were hearing this, and we were teaching the trades in schools in those days. America became the producer to the world. Today, we're still the largest GDP, but we're a consumer in a lot of ways too. Absolutely. So yeah, my goal, Titan Gilroy, Mike Rowe, Harry Moser, Roger Atkins, Mike Chico, all of these guys, Roy Kaminsky. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to get the conversations around the dinner table with mom and dad and the kids to talk about all of these great innovations. I mean, there's never been a better time to be in manufacturing. I mean, the old adage that it's a dirty, dead-end job where you can't make any money is not true. Mm-hmm. The average manufacturer today makes, including benefits, $106,000 a year. We use 1/3 of the demand on the energy in the United States. 52% of R&D is in manufacturing. We're building rockets, we're building drones, we're building electric vehicles and ICE engine vehicles. And I mean, it's just an exciting time. If you go into a factory today, they're one of the safest places you can go. And it's climate controlled, with a lot of upward mobility. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity. And that's why I say all of us working together, stronger, smarter, and wiser, and one of us working alone. We have to all work together, schools of higher learning, politicians, and trade, business, to really focus on this skilled trades gap. And I think if we all work together, we know the roadmap. My generation knows the roadmap. Cincinnati had an 8,000-hour training program. If people ask, well, Harold, what was the secret to Cincinnati's success? They understood the necessity of investing in their people. Mm-hmm. And Frederick Sanchez is doing the exact same thing. And Matt Chalky's doing a great job of launching and getting the traction with this HPM, Peop's HPM High Precision Machining Training Academy that we launched, in, 2023, and it's going to gain a lot of momentum. We're going to be leaders in that area, in that arena.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense too. If you invest in your employees, they're going to invest in their job more too, and invest in their life more,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Something you talked about at some point too was you can't continue to do things the way that you've always done them. You have to evolve. You have to change. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. You know, the Me Too's in the world are not going to survive. I think that Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, I think what's it called now?
Meta, I think.
Meta,
right?
thank you. He said that the only thing, the surefire way to fail is to not change. So what he's really saying is, as industry changes, let's not cling to the old things that worked for that era. Let's embrace AI. AI is not going to take away the high-skilled trades jobs. It's just not. It's going to take some of the clerical duties away. It's going to take some of the white-collar jobs away, but it's not perfect.
Yeah.
You know, it's exceptional at gathering data and gathering it quickly and collating it and structuring it. It's fantastic when you're doing CAD/CAM programs at identifying the materials, identifying the modulus of elasticity, the tensile strength, and can help write the program in an optimum way that will increase the throughput. Again, it goes back to people do business with people, and it's the trust in people that's going to make the difference. It's going to be the true differentiator. And when I mean by trusting people, it's investing in your people, in your workforce. It's investing in your commercial team. It's investing in R&D. I mean, Fees invest millions of dollars in R&D to make sure that we're leaders. Frederick Sanchez has set a very aggressive goal for us to reduce our CO2 by 30% by 2030. That's aggressive. In our combustion business, our steel business, our aluminum business, we're all looking at processes that will eliminate CO2, so we can protect, the emissions into the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's an awesome initiative too. When we look at mentorship and workforce development, what is some strategies that you would, trying to think how to word this? Actually, I'll do this. I'll reframe it. What advice would you give to yourself getting into this industry at this point in time?
Well, let me share this. When I have an opportunity to do public speaking, I always link the glorious past with the optimistic visionary future. So I don't think that we should discard, what our fathers and our grandfathers did, but I think that we should link it. All young people love a good story. They love a good story. When I begin to tell them about the history of Feeb and that we built the Osray train station, it's a magnificent engineering accomplishment. And when I tell them that we were involved in the construction of the Alexander the Third Bridge, and that we designed and built the elevators in the Eiffel Tower, they're mesmerized.
Yeah.
They're mesmerized. And when I tell them that we produced 17,500 machine tools in 1942, 1 out of every 12, it captivates their interest. And when I say, well, we're using what we learned over the last 100 years to help propel us to the next 100 years under the Fees umbrella, and groups like AH's and Fanuc's and Siemens' contribution to that really excites them. They want to be a part of something. They want to know that their life has purpose.
Yeah.
And that we're here on purpose for a purpose. And when you walk them through the Fees factory over in Hebron, which we did when I was there, and I know Matt Chalky embraces the same thing. When you bring these high school students in, they get a chance to see what our fiber placement, our composites business is doing, what additive manufacturing is doing. That really motivates them. Then they go home and teach their parents. Where we missed the boat is we had the parents captive, in years gone by. We lost the parents. And if you lose the parents, you lose the kids. Well, today we got a chance to go back into these high schools. You ask them, what am I doing? I'm going into Butler Tech, and I'm going into some of these trade schools. And I'm sharing this message. So now it's coming from the kids to the parents around the dinner table. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the message is inverse now.
Yeah. I've heard about that with reverse job fairs too. And the students will approach the companies and explain their, what they're interested in versus just kind of going around and picking different companies and learning about it?
Yes, yes. When you realize that you have a potential to change the world, and that's what manufacturing does.
Yes.
It changes the world. The technology that we're developing, it's ongoing, it's perpetual. And we're seeing a lot of that being reshored. We've got Harry Moser. During the decade of 2000 to 2010, we lost 6 million manufacturing jobs in the United States. Harry's goal in 2010, when he started reshoring initiatives, was to reshore 5 million jobs. We're not quite halfway there yet, but we're pretty close to halfway there. That's a major accomplishment.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're seeing, GE, you're seeing Komatsu, you're seeing the Phoebs Group, you're seeing Mazak. All of these leaders who are now investing in, the technology that's helping give them the capacity. The demand is there, but it exceeds our capacity.
Yeah.
So now we all know that we have to work together, and we're developing these programs to get these kids, these young kids, into high schools. And I think we need to even get into the elementary school level. Okay, so it becomes a part of their DNA. It becomes a part of their mindset.
Well, and we were both at the forecasting event where Dan Yonka was talking about that with Mazak. How they have initiatives set in place so employees know where they can get to. They put in the work and the effort, and they're able to get it versus I'm just going to clock in and hopefully I make it to some, other.
Yeah, you mentioned Dan is a great guy. Dan's a former Cincinnati guy. Received his training in Cincinnati, and we're all proud of him. Dan also believes in, in giving back. He understands, because he witnessed it at Cincinnati, the return on the investment in people. He's as genuine and sincere of a person as you'd ever want to meet. He understands the need, the incumbency upon us leaders to give back. He gave a pretty powerful message there.
Absolutely.
And he and Warren Davidson, who is our congressman, former business owner, entrepreneur, it was a great conference to be at, and to see that it was sold out. So manufacturing is alive and well, and I'm so grateful that it's happening at the end of my life, so I could see a return of what I entered into when I got into the business in the 1970s. When I came into the business, we were still the #1 machine tool builder. Cincinnati was the machine tool capital of the world.
That's very cool. Yeah, and with our generation too, we have like Drew Crow goes out, and he'll also go into the schools. He helps out the underprivileged too. He was a former felon, got his degrees, promoting it's the new manufacturing renaissance.
Okay.
So he's pushing.
I like the title.
Yeah, it's a really cool movement, but we're seeing a lot more people getting involved, and the more we share these stories, I feel like that's when it starts to have a really it's a domino effect, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a multiplier. It's a great multiplier for sure. Yeah, and there's a lot of messengers, and I appreciate what you're doing, David. I appreciate you taking your time to come in, and get my ideas. I know you've talked to Terry Iverson. You've talked to the president of San Fran, if I'm not mistaken. Watched a lot of your podcasts. I think you're doing the industry a good service to get this message multiplied through these podcasts that you're doing.
Well, awesome. Yeah, Harold, I appreciate your time. For those of you watching, too, follow Harold on LinkedIn. Look for his posts. He's constantly writing about history, which is fascinating. I know a lot of people love hearing about the history of this manufacturing. So thank you so much.
Oh, my appreciation. Thank you, David.
Yeah.